Okay, let's get started. It's my privilege to welcome you to the University of Tennessee Nuclear Engineering Department Seminar Series. I'll be introducing today's speaker shortly, but before I do that, we have a new visiting scholar from Brazil that I'd like to introduce. It's Sergio Perilla. He's from IPN. Stand up and so everybody can see. Let's give him a round of applause. He's here to work for possibly up to 9 months with Dr. Upadhyaya on instrumentation controls or signal processing and so on. Okay. Today's speaker is Dr. Jeanine Williamson, who is the Engineering Reference Librarian for the University of Tennessee. She comes to us from the University of Rhode Island, where she had a similar job there. She received her PhD in library science from the University of North Carolina. She's a genuine Tar Heel, and we'll look forward to hearing what you have to say, Jeanine.
Thank you. Does anyone else need a handout?
Yeah, let me pass it out.
Okay. Thanks for inviting me to be here today. Today I want to tell you about the way you would find literature in nuclear and radiological engineering. And to do that, I'm going to be talking about 3 databases: Compendix, which is one for engineering in general, InSpec, which is more the high-energy type engineering, physics, nuclear engineering, as well as electrical engineering, and then Medline, which we'll get in, is a medical database that will give you literature from the radiological field. After that, I'm going to answer any questions you have about library procedures at Hodges Library and go over some locations, how you do interlibrary loan, etc. Please stop me at any time if you have any questions. This is a small enough group that we could answer them as we go along, or ask me afterwards if you'd rather. You should have a handout. Looks like this. On the first 2 pages is just an outline of some of the library locations and procedures. On the last part are the slides for today's presentation. So if you can't see the slides today, then you can look at them on your handout. Okay, let me get started. My contact information is on the handout and also on the screen. Please feel free to email me at any time. I'll be happy to help you. I can be reached in the reference area on the first floor of Hodges Library. Let me get started with Compendix. Compendix is a database of articles and proceedings and some technical reports that covers all fields in engineering, so I thought it was appropriate to include it for nuclear engineering as well. You get to it from the library homepage, and I have written down the URL on this handout, www.lib.utk.edu. And if you're trying to access any of our journal literature databases, you would go to Databases Indexes, which is right under e-resources. Then after that, this is what our databases page looks like. You would want to go to Engineering, which is under Sciences here. That's what the engineering databases page looks like, and you might want to keep this in mind for future reference because all of the disciplines are represented here: mechanical, electrical, nuclear, material science, civil. Any of those have their databases on this page, but today, as I mentioned, I'm only going to be focusing on 3 of them. So for Compendix, you would just click on the one for Compendix. And I should point out that there's a green NetID button beside it. That means that if you're off campus, you can get in using your NetID. And your NetID is just your username of your email. Also, you can find it if you go to the UT homepage and go to People Search and put in your name, and that will give you your NetID as well. What you use as your password is the first 2 letters of the month in which you were born, followed by the last 2 digits of the year in which you were born, followed by the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. And if you've changed that password at any time, then you will want to use whatever new password you've put in on the UT homepage. But if you want to access the database remotely, in other words, off campus, you do need to come to this engineering databases page in order to get into the databases off campus. This is what the initial screen looks like on Compendix. You'll notice that the other databases I'm talking about look very similar because they're produced by the same company, WebSpurs. I always choose WebSpurs 4 just because it's the newer interface. When you're putting in your search, you can combine different concepts with the word and or the word or. And will find both or all of the words that you put in, or will find any of the words you put in. That's known as Boolean logic. The computer does not process natural language phrases or sentences, so you have to represent each sentence by a word or phrase, and then put and between the different concepts to retrieve all of those concepts. So for example, for this search, I've done reliability and reactor and core. I use and to join all of those. And then after that, you would click on Start Search. Yes?
Don't just the end and see what's happening.
It'll look for the phrase reliability reactor core, and it won't find anything because they'll look for the exact phrase.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Need to separate them so it will look anywhere within the record. Sometimes it's hard to predict exactly what words are going to be there, so it's always good to put an and as a rule. Okay.
At least one of them, right?
This is what the records look like. Let me see if I skipped over one. At the bottom of each record, there's going to be a little gray check for holdings button, which you can link into the library catalog to find out the call number or location or whether the periodical is held in the UT library. We've also cataloged our electronic journals. Most of them, we're about to get them all in, but we haven't quite finished with the Wiley journal. So our catalog will tell you whether we have an electronic subscription or not. Notice a few elements of the record. They'll give you the article title, labeled by TI. They'll give you the author. Notice those are hyperlinked, so you can find other things by the authors if you want to. The SO stands for source, and that just tells you the name of the source or periodical or conference that it has. You need to always write down at least the volume number, the issue number, and the page numbers, so that you can, and the date, so that you can go to the library shelves and actually find the volume that you want. Because if you're looking for a journal that is, say, in 1992, you'll have to, and you don't know that, you would theoretically have to look through all the different volumes before that and after that to find it. So it'll just save you time if you print out the citations or copy that down if you don't already know that. Most of you grad students already know that. So you click on Check for Holdings to see if we have it in the library catalog. This is what one looks like that we don't have. It will just give you this box with the SN number, which stands for ISSN, and that's what it looks like. And if we don't have it, you can get it by interlibrary loan, which I'm going to talk about later. This is another one that we did have, and this is what it will look like. That's Nuclear Monitoring International, I think. And it gives you several different locations. The important thing to notice about these records when you do find them is that they will have a summary holdings line. You might want to write that down. That is the line that you need to be looking at, summary holdings, because date of publication just refers to when the journal began being published. And summary holdings refers to the things that are actually in the library. In this case, Hodges Stat has 1976 through 1999. Hodges Periodical has January through December of 2000, as well as January through August of 2001. Storage Stat contains 1968 through 1973, as well as these other ones down here. So this is a good example because it tells you all the different locations that the journals could be in the library system. Hodges Periodicals is usually where the most recent ones are kept, and the ones that say periodicals on that screen are going to be found on the second floor in Hodges Library. The ones that say stat refer to floors 3 through 6 of the Hodges Library. So you would need to figure out what floor this call number, TK 6801 or 9801, is found on. And it would be the 6th floor, which I know because all the T's are on the 6th floor. Most of you will be dealing with the T classification for engineering. The other one, Hodges storage stacks, those are kept over in Hoskins Library, and we currently don't have open access to those stacks. So you would need to fill out a storage request form to be able to get the material, and it would take 24 hours usually. We're working on that. We're considering options about what to do about storage, but at the moment they're closed access. So any questions about locations? One thing I want to point out is you want to copy down whatever the date is. For example, this one was from May 98, so that you would know which year. And for example, in that record we were looking at earlier, I'll go back to it. The 98 ones are kept in the Hodges stack. So the particular issue you need would be in the Hodges stacks on the 6th floor. Okay, the second database I wanted to talk about is InSpec. InSpec is basically the online version, if you're familiar with electrical electronics abstracts, physics abstracts, and computer and control abstracts, all put into one file that is computer searchable. This is really good, I found, for nuclear engineering. You might not expect it from what you find there, but since it does have the physics-oriented journal, it does have quite a lot on nuclear engineering. So keep it in mind for a possible search. You get to it the same way you get to Compendix. Start at the library homepage and then go to Databases Indexes. And then you would end up on this engineering databases page and go to InSpec. You do the same kind of search. You put and between your different concepts. You try to predict exactly what words or word forms will be found. You may have to be flexible and try more than once. Most of us librarians have to do it over and over again before we find the results, but we've just gotten desensitized to trying it over and over again, and you should do that as well because it's not easy to find these things. You have to predict what the author had in mind when he wrote the title. You have to predict what the abstractor had in mind when he or she wrote the abstract, and you have to just try different possibilities. For example, what you might want to do, you might want to look for a synonym for reliability. I don't know what would be one, but maybe safety or some other aspect. You might want to try that in a separate search. Also, notice that you can use an asterisk at any time if you want to truncate. This will find the stem of a word and all other words with that stem. In other words, if I put an asterisk at the end of core, it would find both core and cores, if that would be of use. Then it looks pretty much the same. It has the citation information. It has an abstract or summary. Yeah. I don't believe they have that option, but I could talk to you about it afterwards and check. I don't think they do. Again, you can check for holdings with the little gray button. And then this one is kind of a nice one because it has an electronic subscription. Whenever there's an electronic subscription, it will have brackets and it will have the word electronic somewhere within those brackets. In some cases, they'll say print and electronic if we have both a print subscription and electronic one. In this one, we just have the electronic, so it has electronic journal. And we do have a number of different journal aggregators for electronic journals. We have the Elsevier journals, which are found in Science Direct. We have the Wiley journals, which we bought through Wiley Inner Science. And then we bought some other ones as well. I believe the most important ones for nuclear engineering are probably going to be the Science Direct ones from Elsevier. So if you wanted to actually link to this electronic article from the library catalog, you'd first need to click on the link for the title, and then you would be bumped into this record, and you need to look for the word URL, and it will have a hyperlink where you can link directly to the journal. This is what the aggregator looks like. As you can see, it looks very different from the library catalog because we bought it from outside. We bought it from Elsevier. What you would need to do is go to the particular issue that contained the article, see how it lines out different issues. And Elsevier should go back in some cases to 1995, although not for all of the journals. One thing I should have mentioned, let me go back. In some cases, it will have a green subscribe button, and in other cases, a white non-subscribe button. In this case, although we did not subscribe to this particular journal, you can still get the content by clicking on it and then clicking on continue. For the green ones, you won't even be prompted to click continue. You can simply go into the article. It's still free to you. We have a set of transactions that they have given us. It was $6,000 to start with that we used to pay for these non-subscribed journals. We're planning to put more money in when we run out of the $6,000, which may be soon. So go ahead and try to click continue. I know that we are nearing the end of that $6,000, but we will put more in. Yeah? Okay. Okay, again, you would want to notice the date. This is June 2001. Go to the issue for that date. And then, as I mentioned, even though it's not subscribed to, you can click on this continue button to get it. I didn't do that in the demo because I didn't want to waste one of the 6,000 transactions.
Is there a difference in price between electronic subscription and hard copy?
In some cases, yes. Elsevier gave us a pretty nice deal because we were in a consortium with some other libraries, and they basically gave us all of our journal subscriptions plus the other libraries' journal subscriptions at a certain price, and then the other ones available through this transaction account. Okay, now just going on to Medline. Medline is the one that the doctors use in all fields related to medicine, such as radiology. I think it's really important for a degree like this one that contains radiology, because this is where you're going to get the information about all the techniques as well as all the physiological or anatomical information that you might need. Again, you go to the databases page off of the library homepage. You go under Sciences to Engineering. Then instead of, I'm sorry, not to Engineering, that was a mistake. You go to Health Sciences. Let me go back and show that again. Health Sciences is at the end of the Sciences thing. Then you would go to Medline. There's another version of it called PubMed that some people like a little bit better, but I'm showing Medline because it's the same as InSpec and Appendix, and once you've learned one, you've learned all three. So go to Medline if you want to search that. It breaks down the file into different years, so you pick whatever you want. I picked 1990 to present. Again, choose Web First 4. In this case, I used positron emission tomography as my search. I did it as a phrase. I didn't attempt to use AND in this case because I thought the phrase would do pretty well. Again, it looks very similar. It gives you the article title, the author, the journal. Notice that it gives you abbreviations for the journal. You would want to, if you don't know what it stands for, you might want to stop by the reference desk and get the full title, because they publish a list of abbreviations for Medline, and you would need the full title if you're looking for it in the library catalog, or if you're trying to get it by interlibrary loan. That's one that we didn't have. That's one that we did have, clinical nuclear medicine. Again, notice this even gives you another location, the hospital library. That's another place which you have access to as students here. If you want to get into the full record, you need to click on the underlined record number. It gives you even more information. For example, it gives you all these nice subject headings that you can click on and find related articles. You can also do that in Compendix and InSpec. But the ones in Medline are really nice because they really paid a lot of attention to their indexing. They have both major subject headings and minor subject headings, and the major ones, the in-mesh subject headings, will tell you what the main ideas of the article ones are, and the minor ones will tell you just what the minor ideas are in the article. So NJME stands for the major one, and MINE stands for the minor one. It's kind of nice because that way you can tell whether it's the predominant topic of the article or just a subsidiary idea. In this case, I clicked on one of the subject headings, and it even gave me some related terms, which is kind of nice. Broader terms that you could use, you could simply click on those if you're interested in them. It gives me a more specific term, tomography emission. For example, notice that it reversed the order of those words because the indexer decided to use the inverted form instead of the regular form. So that can be good if you can't predict exactly what the terms are. It can be good to search within these subject headings. In this case, I clicked on one of them, and it gives you a little description of what the term means, a little definition. Then I search for it. It allows you to select subheadings if you want to be more specific, like adverse effects or contraindications. Generally, I just like to search under all the subheadings because sometimes it's hard to predict exactly what kind of subheading the indexer is going to use. Okay, so that was Medline. Does anybody have any questions about Medline? Okay. Now I want to just go over some library procedures. If you look on your handout, at number 3, this part of the demo will show you about interlibrary loan and Library Express. Again, you start at the UTK Library's homepage. This time you go to Services, which is under About the Library. Then you would go to Interlibrary Services, right there. Then it brings up this screen which allows you to log in. If you're a first-time user, you would simply put in your NetID and your NetID password like I was talking about for remote access. You do the same thing if you've already logged in at any time. It's kind of a nice login procedure because the first time you do it, it will ask you for the information, and then after that you're registered for as long as you're here. And this service is open to students, faculty, and staff. It basically gets you materials from other libraries that are not held at UTK. It takes about a week for articles, if you're lucky, and if we get it scanned over the internet. If it comes by mail, it may take 2 weeks. Books usually take at least 2 weeks because they're always in the mail. So you would put your NetID in here and your password, which, as I mentioned, was the first 2 letters of the month in which you're born, followed by the last 2 digits of the year in which you're born, followed by the last 4 digits of your Social Security. So if you're born in January 1969, and your Social Security ended with 1234, it would be JA691234. Once you're in there, as I mentioned, if you're doing it for the first time, it will ask you a little bit of information about yourself. You'll have to say whether you want delivery to the department, because they will deliver to departmental offices for grad students and faculty, or if you want it in a PDF file, they can give it to you that way. That's how I get mine when I do it, because that way I can just go to this site and click on it and get the information, just download it and print it out myself, or you can pick it up at circulation if you want to walk over to Hodges. If you're doing an interlibrary loan, you need to click on that first tab. Then in this case, I chose request an article, but you basically just specify the type of document you want, either a book, dissertation, proceeding, whole proceedings if you want a whole conference. But use article or photocopy if you're trying to get a part of anything. In other words, a chapter of a book or an article from a journal or a conference paper for proceedings. So you put that in, then click on select. Then it gives you all these boxes to fill out. And you do need to fill in at least the article title, which is required, and the periodical title, and the page number, which are all required. But if you do less, expect your request to be a little bit delayed, because the librarians rely on all this information when they're looking it up at other libraries like MIT or Harvard or wherever we get it from. The more information they have, the faster they can process it. I know from having worked in interlibrary loan that not having the information can delay it at least a couple of days, because we're having to verify the citation and make sure that we've got the right information. Please also try to be sure your information is correct, because if you put the wrong page numbers, the library we're borrowing it from may actually reject the request, because they may not want to page through all the different articles to find your article when they're dealing with, say, 400 requests a day or however many they have. So if you don't have the complete information, or if you don't know what the abbreviation of the title stands for Medline, please stop by the reference desk and we'll be happy to track it down for you. That can just make it go a lot more nicely. You would need to fill in, as I said, the article authors, the title, periodical title, volume, issue, month, year, and pages. That was why you want to print out your citations, or at least write down all that information. Library Express was the other tab there at the top. It works very similarly, and Library Express is a service where you can get books delivered from Hodges to your departmental office. Also, you can get photocopies of articles from Hodges. You can get bound periodicals, which circulate for 1 day. The books will circulate for whatever loan privileges you have as a grad student or faculty member. For faculty members, it's a year. For grad students, I believe it's 112 days. So it's free of charge if you're just borrowing a book or borrowing a periodical. It costs a little bit of money if you're getting a photocopy, like maybe $2.50 for 20 pages, up to, I believe, about $5 for 60 pages, which is the limit. They will also pick up materials if you want to return them to the library. You can fill in this form and they'll pick it up for you and take it back to the library.
Can undergraduate honor students use it too?
No, I'm sorry, you can't. It's just for grad students and faculty. Yeah, undergraduates are unlucky because they've got to go to the library. And you know where it is, right? The Hodges library, the one that looks like a Lego.
Right.
Okay. And you would pick up your interlibrary loans at the circulation desk if you did it. Or you could get them by PDF. Okay, again, you fill out the form. It's going to ask you for the call number in the library catalog. And maybe you don't know the call number. Maybe Professor whoever has just given you a citation in the Journal of Nuclear Complexity or whatever a real name for a journal would be. And you have to figure out what the call number is in the library, either to go get it yourself or to get it by Library Express. So what do? Well, you again start at the library homepage, and you go to UT Libraries Catalog, which is the very first thing on the page. Then after that, you're confronted with a kind of complex screen with two different possibilities. And you go to the bottom half of the screen where it says Browse UT Libraries Catalog. And the reason why you do that is because you're looking for an exact title. If you were just trying to do a keyword search, in other words, look for any journal with the word nuclear in it, then you would go to the top keyword part. But if you know the title you're looking for, you go to the bottom half and you do change that second box to periodical title by clicking on the little arrow and dragging down. Notice or just realize that you can also search by author in the Browse section. You can search by titles of books, and that would just be title. But for journals, you want to do periodical title, and that makes it a lot easier to find things because that way you rule out all the books with the same title. So for example, if there's a journal called Nuclear Complexity, which I don't believe there is, and there's also a book called Nuclear Complexity, then you would find just the journal by choosing periodical title right here. Then you click on Go. And I was doing Journal of the American Nuclear Society in this case. And for some reason it gives you the results in the middle of the page. So you do have to sort of look carefully and make sure that it's not included or if it is included. And it is in this case. And it gives you, again, the same locations that you saw in the other demos. Periodicals for this one is 1999 through 2001. Stacks for the other issues. So remember, periodicals is on the second floor, stacks for floors 3 through 6. And the cues are on the 5th floor. Just another little piece of trivia for you. But it is posted all over the library, and we have little bookmarks that we hand out that will tell you exactly what floors things are on. As well, we have what is called a stacks locator. Stacks locator is a little brown booklet that we have on every floor. Tells you what rows the journals are on in the book. And that can be really nice because we've been told that our call number system is a little bit hard to navigate in that building that is shaped like a Lego block because it's not even. And you kind of have to wander around to find things. So do look at the stacks locator. It'll tell you exactly which row you need to go to. Okay, so just to summarize, you can contact me at any time. I'll be happy to help you with a literature search. You can also stop by the reference desk on the first floor of the library. That's one floor up from the ground level. We now have chat reference service during a few hours. If you want to learn about that, it's on the library homepage. We have email reference, same place on the library homepage, and you can email and our librarian will answer your questions. And then you can, of course, make appointments with me by email or by phone. I'll be happy to try and help you. Chances are, if you ask a really hard question at the reference desk, they'll just come get me anyway. So let me see if there's anything I've left off of this sheet. I did include some locations that I forgot to discuss. On the ground level of the library, the computer lab, where you do your word processing. Really the only place in the library that you can do full-fledged word processing. You can do Notepad on all the machines in the reference area, but nobody really wants to do Notepad. If you want Word, go to the computer lab. There's also a really nice new lab for grad students on the 6th floor that has a few computers, and you can go there and do whatever you want there. First floor, one floor up to the ground level, is the reference area. That's where you would go if you wanted to come see me or if you wanted to ask a question at the reference desk. Duplication is also on the first floor. That's where you buy your copy cards. They have some really high-tech copiers too, which are nice. It costs 6 cents per page if you buy a copy card, but you have to start with $1. And then it costs 10 cents a page if you don't buy a copy card. Second floor is where the main circulation desk is, where you would go if you need to activate your account or if you had fines to pay, or if there were any problems that you had using circulation services. Periodicals, also on the second floor, as I mentioned, where the more current periodicals are kept. Reserves, if someone has put something on reserve for a class, please go reserve. A lot of people end up going to reference because they sound very similar, but that's okay. We'll just direct you up to reserve. And then third through sixth floor, the stacks, those would be the books and the journals that are up on those floors. I've included, or tried to include, step-by-step instructions for finding periodicals, for doing interlibrary loan, and then the printouts at the end will tell you sort of the steps in the 3 databases I talked about. One other thing that I should have mentioned, we have another database called Web of Science that you can get to from the engineering databases page. I didn't feel there was time to cover it and give it justice, but it's a general purpose science index where you can search for different topics. You can also search to see who has included Professor whoever in a citation in their works cited page. So if you want to look up one of your professors or look up yourself to see if you've been cited, you can do that, and you would just put your last name and then your first 2 initials and then an asterisk to truncate after those 2 initials. And that would be called a cited ref search. If you have any questions about that or anything else, ask me afterwards, but that was all I had today.
We do have time for a few questions. Does anybody have questions? Dan?
I was wondering about the Library Express charges for how's that billed?
Well, cash or departmental account are basically the 2 possibilities.
Forget it. If you've got an R account, you can charge it to. You can get your professor to agree to it.
Yeah, maybe through a grant or something. There's no charge for interlibrary loan up to $35. Usually it doesn't even cost that much. When I was an interlibrary loan librarian, it hardly ever cost over $35. But if it does, they will notify you and let you know and ask if you want to pay it.
How is it paid in cash? Library Express, paid after?
At the time when they deliver it to you. Yeah.
You don't pay us.
If you want to read more about it, just go under Services to Circulation Borrowing, and they'll give you every single detail you need about that.
Somebody doesn't give the cash, they will
Well, you're kind of talking about a gray area. Some people have said they haven't been billed when they got this service, and I don't know why, but their policy states that they do bill, so don't take your chances.
Any other questions? I have a question. What percentage of all the journals that we have in the library, what percentage are available electronically?
Well, I don't think anyone's calculated that percentage yet, but what we do have is definitely have is the Elsevier journals, the Wiley journals, and then a few selected other subscriptions for engineering. The Kinneys are lucky because we have the American Chemical Society. But I don't think we have too many special agreements for nuclear engineering. I think it would be mainly Elsevier and Jeanine.
Okay.
Are there any restrictions for printing out these electronics?
No. As long as you're, enrolled or able to get in, you can print it out. Right now, you may only be able to get to the journals on campus. I don't know if we've totally worked out the problem of off-campus for those, but we're working on it. And when you are able to do that, you would put in your net ID and password.
There is no copyright issue.
Well, we sort of cover that by paying for the subscription. I mean, it would be the same as for a print journal where you can make fair use of the journal.
Oh,
I'm just curious, like, how many requests, interlibrary requests are you guys filling out? How many?
Well, a lot. I know I talked to David Atkins, who's head of interlibrary loan, last week, and he said on Monday, after a weekend when everybody had time to put in requests, there were 200 that Monday to have to fill from other libraries. But they're very efficient. They do a great job, and they should be able to, in some cases, get it over the internet when the other library has an aerial machine, and they can scan it and send it over the internet, and then hopefully it will be less than a week in those lucky cases. If they don't have an aerial at the place where they try to get it, then it could take a little longer.
any other questions? Richard?
We pointed out on the database page, round3.com, there was a hot site. There's also a square.
Okay, the square orange one, I believe it says UT in it. Do you have an example of a database?
No, I was tinkering with it last night, and I don't know.
Okay. I don't remember which one was the orange box, but I know the orange triangle is UT, and that would just be on campus using an ERA account if you're off campus. Some of them are even available just in the library, but I don't think that applies to nuclear engineering. I think it's more things like SciFinder.
What to do with literature search for the dissertation? How can you make like a comprehensive literature search?
There's a database called Dissertation Abstracts, and if you go to the databases indexes on the library homepage and go to Database Finder and put in Dissertation Abstracts, they'll find the citations for you.
Oh, okay.
But that only covers dissertations, right?
Right, that's
Okay.
just
And you need
dissertation.
to cover everything.
No, I understand.
Okay.
This is one of the...
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be a way to supplement your search in these other databases.
When I was a student here, we actually had hard copy of dissertation abstracts in our building. We don't have that anymore. Any other questions? Well, we do have refreshments downstairs for everyone, and of course everyone's invited, but before we adjourn to that, let's express our appreciation again to Jeanine. Thank you.